Hello, welcome to another episode of Mindful Drawing. I'm Rooks is Fun, and I'll be your guide here as we enter into a meditative practice of mindfulness through the act of drawing. Each week, I hold these sessions live on Tuesday mornings through Mindful Prat and streamed on Twitch if you want to find me at Rooks is Fun, where we explore some technique of drawing and a connection between our body, our eye, our mind's visual processing, and that aesthetic intention that comes out with the paper, the pen, and this creative expression through drawing. The techniques are meant to be simple but introductory to things that can grow into much larger ways of drawing and creating your own practice, where you can use what we do here any time of the day, any day of the week, to just take a few moments to do something creative or to bring some relaxation, some centering, and some kind of organization to thinking through this visual act of drawing. This week we'll map out the space of a network, take some inspiration from the instruction-based drawings of Saul LeWitt, and just begin by mapping a bunch of points, connecting them together, and then seeing what we might find within those. It'll be a nice, easy slide into the technique, good connection with our breathing and the movement of our body, a slowing down of our attention to that space we develop on the page, and then an opening up and a play and exploration within the new territories we create together. But all you'll need is a pen or pencil, some kind of paper to draw on, and a little bit of space to hold it all together. So go ahead and get your stuff, and let's draw together. I think the thing that we'll look at today is probably something we've seen before, or maybe started with before. So I think I'll skip over the drawing warm-up and we'll jump right in, but we'll do a little bit of general space and connectedness warm-up, setting ourselves up here to be kind of ready to have that attention and mindfulness. So in the space, just taking a few moments to take in a deep breath and let the lungs expand, and then letting it fall out. And on the first few breaths, just observing, feeling where things might be tight or loose, if there's any tension or pressure on the inhale, staying with it for a moment, and then trying to let it out loosely, smoothly on the exhale. Let the shoulders fall into place. Let all the ribs expand and communicate with their neighbors, and then smooth out as your back straightens, maybe moving it a little side to side or forward and back. Maybe rolling the shoulders just in light circles to the back on one breath, and to the front on another breath. Making sure that whole chain from our position where we're seated to our fingers is connected and we have some mental attention to it. Our nervous system is aligned and in tuned. And a few more breaths as we begin to transition over to a drawing space. Just a pad of paper, blank page, napkin, pen or pencil, whatever it might be. And on the next breath, let those fingers stretch out, pulling or reaching as far as they can. On the out breath, let them relax, palms down or up, trying a little bit of both as the tension leaks back out. And one more time for the fingers, stretching them out. And letting them soften so they're flexible and supple and ready to start to draw with. And as you're ready, you can pick up your pencil or pen, and we'll just begin with scattering a little constellation of points or dots that will set us up having a space for a larger page. Choosing anywhere maybe with the eyes closed even. Just let the hand drift around the page a little bit. Feel the paper before it has ink or graphite on there to smudge, and choosing a spot and just leaking out a little bit of medium onto the paper, drawing little circles or wobble shapes to make a nice heavy dot. And breathing in and letting the hand move around again. And on the out breath, finding a resting place. And again, forming that thick dot of ink or graphite or anything else you want to draw with. Breathing in, positioning, searching without the eyes, just letting the hand find a place to engage, breathe out, and form, again, that point in the space of the page. And a few more times at the pace of your breath, finding a location while you breathe in, and then just letting the out breath move that pen or pencil around. You can take breaks in between. You just want a breath to wander or locate. Or if you're in the rotation and repetition of forming that dot, a couple breaths there are fine too. And bringing some attention as we explore the space without our visual cues, with the eyes closed, and with the breath open. Where does your hand tend to reach? How does it hold itself relative to the page? I find a want for it to be more connected to the paper, for stability without the eye backing it up, and to reach in a little bit to whatever sensation happens there. Just to recognize it, how the body changes without some of its senses engaged, the vision helping us feel stable, since it's so primary at the forefront of how we engage with what's in front of us. No need to challenge what happens naturally, but if you're interested in exploring or playing in that space, you could try keeping the pen or pencil more aligned with a straight extension of the hand, keeping the wrist or palm a little bit off the paper. But we don't have to. It's just a practice of technique that helps avoid smearing or smudging in a more intention drawing. And a few more breaths at your pace, finding just a few more points in that constellation, marking the empty territory of the paper without our guide of the eyes, just feeling in the space, giving it some context, some forming, that when we reopen and engage, will become some found or discovered territory to continue to work within, to practice attention within without the initial burden of so much decision in the visual configuring. And after the next thought, maybe take a nice deep breath in one more time, kind of aligning the spine, ribs, shoulders, back, neck, and arms. Holding it for just a moment to observe how the body feels, and then letting it drift out as you settle into that relaxed, stable position that you can hold for 20 minutes or so while working here. And I'm going to open my eyes to observe what's happening on the page where the dots may have formed. Maybe recognizing some of the products of the reach of the arm, the extension, the clustering in a space or jumping around. I'm just going to take any mark that stands out and begin to draw a line from it to every other dot nearby, or even every dot on the page. They don't have to be straight lines. They can wander their way between dots, reaching out from moments of detail or subtleness in each mark. If they're fine, tipped, pointed dots, then maybe evenly extending from them. Or if they're like mine, they have a little wobble to them. They're small opportunities to let the eyes into the space of that micro moment. Maybe a line with a nook or a cranny. Maybe peel off the edge to reach outwards into the space. And just working your way from each one out to its neighbors. Can extend far across the page or stay kind of local, whichever starts to feel right. You can layer back in more extensions at any time. And once we have the hang of just the general gist and technique, how we want to extend those curves from point to point, fast and straight, soft and meandering, heavy or light. We can then bring our breath into the work to expand some of the connection, to build a rhythm between our body and our eyes and this expression out on the paper, in choosing on your next preparation for drawing of a line to take a breath in. Find that place on the dot to begin, and on the out breath, draw with the speed that the breath comes out. And the first few of these may not perfectly align to the breath, and you find yourself rushing to the end or having a little left over. And through a few repetitions, you can begin to align those two spaces with the speed of our bodies relaxing of the lungs and the motion of the hand. Breathing into position and out to move. And taking each new line as its own moment, just a simple task of bridging the space between two existing points. We don't have to worry if they cross other lines or even bump into or sneak through other points. The moment is established before the beginning of the curve in the direction traveled and the applied intention to connect the dots. Letting every other factor there just drop away for a moment. Breathing in to find position, and out as the pen or pencil moves across the space. that slower relaxation of the breath as the guide for the movement, allowing for those little potential adjustments along the path, maybe slowing down to open up a little bit more wobble as we search for control and that fine motor movement at the end of our fingers. Seeing how smooth that connection between the out breath and the movement can be, just observing, not as the primary goal, but as something to notice. And if it's a bit jumpy and bumpy and wobbly, we might lean into that space a little bit to practice the smoothing as each new segment is a new opportunity for that practice. And after several hundred of these, it may be nearly impossible to tell visually which ones were the smooth ones and which the bumpy, as we operate in that gradual gradient of change. Practice perhaps an improvement or a refinement of the technique, or just a change from one way of doing it to a new way. And as the web thickens, it may become more obvious where connections slipped by, and you start to meander a bit more between each dot to find its link to the neighbors, or choosing to leave some unconnected in the thickness or the density of the page. Of whatever the eye and hand begin to communicate as they read the space, changing with each application of that moment of drawing the line, reforming and reconfiguring a new map for the mind to engage with. But if the space does fill or tighten to that completed density of connecting every dot to every other dot, as inspired a bit by Saul LeWitt, can draw more dots or transition perhaps to a new technique to take this network of crossing lines and read into the new cells forming between them. I think what I see is something to transition from the two-dimensional here to a simulated three-dimensional of a landscape. But taking a few moments first just to explore it, maybe tracking around some of the interesting shapes that emerge in the intersection, and interesting referring to the ones that catch the eye. Maybe it's aesthetic, perhaps just a density or openness feel, specific shapes drawing us in and tracing around them, giving them that second layer of emphasis, of visual kind of pop on the page. but letting the hand and the eye do it quickly, not getting too caught up in considering whether you like the shape or don't like the shape, whether it's a good shape for the drawing or the composition, just the ones that catch the glance, draw us in for a moment as we retrace those steps of our extended curves, but with new chaining, new links crossing over between them. Thickening those edges and just getting into kind of the third phase of this territory. The first, a constellation of points. The next, the linkage and connection, the web of those points or the network. Now the third, the space within them, the space of overlap and connection. And then I'm going to just pick up a different pen for the sake of giving my hands a small break, but keep tracing and drawing or take a little stretch break. I'm going to start to look into some of those emphasized shapes and bring them more thickly into their space by taking the corners and extending them inward a little ways. And then, whatever number of sides it may have, once they come into the center, getting to connect them, either by bringing them all together or by having a light offset or repetition of the shape. In each one, a chance to play a little bit in that space. How far do you bring the corners in before they begin to reconnect, either into a closed, conditioned shape, or perhaps into just a point? Etched into that new space. Either projecting some of that shape back into the space of the page, or perhaps lifting it up like a little faceted, bumpy landscape, depending on how the eyes begin to read those interior forms. And I'm just beginning with the first shapes that I identified in that exploratory phase. And then, as time permits, I extend that out into any shapes adjacent, or spend a little time in these identified zones to bring emphasis or embellishment to the shapes, to make the lines heavier or crisper, perhaps give surface to the sides or the edges. And taking the next 5 minutes or so to just see where this forming into the page takes you. A little playful time in the map that we've created to explore, to wander, and find some creative expression through the technique that we've found. Perhaps as you draw, remembering to observe the breath. Let it flow at its natural disposition, but having an eye on it for tightening or holding in as the attention is pulled into the navigating of this other space. Depending on your space and what you have set up, for me, those moments of silence that emerge after bringing that mindfulness and awareness to this kind of engaging act, this way of letting our attention out into the space of the paper through a technique, through a practice that engages the mind as well as the senses and the muscles. Really opens up a lot of quiet in that territory, and in that internal quiet for a few moments, I like to find some unexpected, perhaps expression or just opportunity within a little drawing practice. And if your space supports it and has that heaviness of the quiet to it, can we bring back some sensitivity and awareness in the last couple of minutes to where we are and how we engage with that space by opening up our ears, continuing to draw if you like, or putting it aside, but letting the hearing reach out, maybe pick up the scratchiness of the pen if it's that sensitive in the space, or the wind of the air conditioner blowing, or cars outside, trees rustling, maybe a pet in the background. Whatever subtle sounds would be filling the space. Even our own breath, our own swallows or adjustments in a chair, the creaks, the rustling of our shirt, the movement of our arms on the table. Anything that sends those disruptions to the airwaves, the sound waves out, bouncing around the objects in our space and bouncing into our ears. And we can travel back along that with a couple of breaths, feeling it fill our space and then echo out into the space around. But on the out breath, letting it be audible for you, just in the heaviness of the airflow. As we come back there into our physical presence, we close the eyes for a moment on the breath, and then let them open and re-engage and see what's around us as we adjust. Flex the shoulders and the arms and the hands, and return now to our place of interaction for the day. Thank you for joining along in this mindful practice. I hope it serves you in bringing a little relaxation and creativity to your day. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up or leave a comment below. Let me know what you think and if there's any other techniques you would like to see incorporated into these expressions of mindful drawing. Otherwise, we're here each week. I try to get the videos up sometime around Wednesday, and there's a huge backlog you can go explore if you're looking for new ideas about how to start a drawing or just something to guide you along in an exercise of relaxation and creativity. I'm Rooks is Fun, signing off, and as always, draw well. Thank you.